Hello, Sunshine. Welcome back to another episode of Heartablazepodcast. This is going to be a very special episode. It's definitely a bit challenging to make. I found myself sitting here for a few minutes before I even composed my thoughts enough to jump into the video. I guess I'll start by saying that I went to APM Employment Services today. It's part of the Centrelink program for job seekers, people who don't have jobs or looking for jobs at the moment. And I'm on that program at the moment. That's how I get paid and get financial support. It's been working really well for while I run this project full time, but unfortunately, from their point of view, it is not enough to do something like this that doesn't pay in any way. But we'll get to that a bit more. But I wanted to bring that up first. Obviously, it was a pretty harsh moment for me. But I think I'll start the video by talking about how this project was born and a little bit of background for anyone who obviously is new here, because it's been a little while. It's season 3 up to episode 33 now, and we have about 432 subscribers, which I want to say thank you so much for your support and for your time and enjoying the series so far. So Heart Ablaze podcast, the name and its concept, it started sort of like about 2 years ago. I was originally in this job that I was working in. It was my second job in total. I did my first job in Event Cinemas as a chef, sort of in the gold class kitchen, got some experiences, then kind of found a cafe that did Hungarian pastries and cakes and European style cakes and such, or like homely cakes, kind of like tackling those 3 factors. And it was my second job, and I had no experience in a lot of areas. And I was very, very shy. I was not really good at talking to customers and all that. So I learned a lot of things through that job, became someone who was very good at training. I learned how to dumb things down to the point of just making it as simplified as possible. It sounds bad, but that's kind of how you're supposed to teach people, kind of assume that they really don't understand anything and be patient with them, but also be efficient and specific about what you want. And the most important thing that often gets overlooked in hospitality training is you train people, giving them a reason, not giving them a reason why something is done. And as a result, it becomes a lot harder to remember why you do certain things when learning something. Little tricks I learned along the way. I also learned how to become a barista along the way, and became a supervisor, took on a lot more roles. I fixed a lot of like cake recipes and such because our shop was a bit slower, and that actually ended up becoming a big influence on the business. But long story short, eventually, the business was always a little bit on the side of, some businesses that call you family, but they kind of still exploit you. And, a typical example would be, businesses that normally would host like a Christmas party at the end of the year. Ours was more like, let's host a party, but let's make it a potluck so everyone brings their own food so we don't have to spend a dime. Things like that. Or often want to have like meetings, but then like none of the meetings were paid for. It was all out of our own time, but we had to like try to actually be there. And eventually it got bad enough that our good boss, the boss that we actually liked being around, who was very, very big on customer services, eventually decided he wanted to kind of step away from the business. And it kind of came out of nowhere, and we didn't really know. We just stopped seeing him for a while, and his brother stepped in. And his brother actually ran another business beforehand. I won't name it, but it's a very, very big chocolate business in Australia, and it was run to the ground essentially. And he took over the business, and he was a very money hungry man. And essentially our shop, because we weren't making enough money, we kept getting stripped of staff and then kept getting new things added to the menu and ridiculous things asked, like, we were making bagels and like they wanted us slicing tomatoes fresh to order, like as we make someone's order. And, they wanted everything made fresh to order on the split second, not like fresh, but like immediate fresh. And people would have to wait like 10 minutes for like a bagel, just because we were slicing everything, trying to get all the ingredients prepped as we were actually toasting the bagel, while we were trying to serve customers and clean tables, clean the shop, and also order things, put in orders, make coffee, get things unpacked and stocked, everything. and then we got in a lot of trouble if we like didn't finish anything. Anyway, that's the long story, kind of somewhat summarized. And eventually I kind of fell into this kind of depression, like feeling pretty lost and burnt out, because I was like, like I really cared about the business and I really cared about the place, and everyone was like tired and everyone felt like it was shitty. And so eventually I decided that I would quit. And after I quit, I wasn't exactly sure where to go, and I was never really wanting to quit because I was also really unsure whether I could get a job anywhere else. I never knew whether I was like, people told me how good I was or how like amazing I was and how good at baking I was and coming up with ideas, but I just was never confident enough in knowing whether I would actually secure another job elsewhere or like how I would go with it. Yeah, just little things like that. Anyway, so back to the project. So at that point, when I was feeling really, really lost, there was this moment I remember specifically when I was sitting in my apartment. I was living alone in my one-bedroom apartment at the time in Potts Point, in the King's Cross area. I lived there for like 10 years, so it was a really, really big moment for me when I like finally got my own place. It was just such a kind of like a hard-earned moment. I remember sitting in my apartment and then thinking about things, and I don't know what exactly sparked that thought, but I remember in that moment, one moment where I thought, hey, I could like play around with some episodes and come up with some like fun things, like writing stories and like recording them, or like talking about like my fashion ideas. And I was like, I could talk about stuff. And it was just like along that train of thought of like thinking about these, I started getting this passion and I started getting like chirpy and feeling really excited. And I felt this moment where like it was almost like I felt color come up inside of me. And it was very much about like that kind of sound of like fire setting ablaze when you light it up. And that's when the name came to me, Heart Ablaze. And I was like, I feel like my heart had gone cold and suddenly it was set ablaze. And that's where the project name comes from. And even now, I still love the name. I think it's incredibly befitting and it's incredibly special to, and unique in its own way. And people immediately feel like some kind of passion and drive, which is what the project's very much about. And on the subject, obviously, I want to talk about what the project is really, really about, like its goals and what I'm trying to do. And really, I want the project to be not limited in a certain subject or a certain area, because I want to experience and learn as many things as possible. I think it's partially maybe an ADHD thing, but I just think that it's so interesting to learn all these different things, meet different people, learn about their lives, learn about their jobs, learn about like what their dreams are, and very big part of that became a music interview thing where I reached out to some artists that were new and upcoming and fresh, and I was like, the first person I remember interviewing was Soccer to Me, who is very big now in the UK. And I remember like reaching out to him and saying like, I was wondering if I could have a shot like doing like some kind of interview. And it was a hard learning curve. There were so many things that went wrong with the interview, like recording, with voice recording, audio recording in particular. I had just so many problems, even till like season 3 now. I'm still like finally like figuring things out finally. And, that's just one of the things that I realized that I love doing. When I was doing it, I was thinking, it's so cool. I can come up with these questions that are really tailored to their music, unlike other interviews, and also ask like some quirky, fun questions that keep it very much my own unique kind of personality. And I think they really appreciate that. From my experiences, most people have really enjoyed the interview experience and found it quite fun. And, after that, I also interviewed Ryman Leon, and that was his first interview. And he's gone off to like some huge tours now in America. He's based in Miami. Very cool guy. You should look him up if you like sort of indie folk rock kind of music. But yeah, so the concept of the podcast is essentially trying to keep things nice and fun, but also like keep the curiosity alive. All about learning new things, and connecting with people is a very, very big part of the project. And I wanted like as I kind of started working really full on. So essentially, I was kind of producing episodes here and there for the first 2 seasons, and then kind of started producing a bit more and kind of trying to work on it a little bit more. But season 3 this year was really where it picked up. I decided, as a New Year resolution, I was like, I want to hunker down and really get this project going and really push to show that this means something to me and that this can be a really amazing project. And I set myself a schedule: Monday, Wednesday, Friday uploads, and I have barely missed any. Very few occasions that I had to kind of like upload a day late, but I have diligently recorded, edited, uploaded, promoted things all by myself on a one-man team and got it to 33 episodes, and it's only the beginning of April, so it's pretty amazing. And I take a lot of pride in that, and I love doing it. I find it very, very fun doing these videos. It's just the creative part of me that's kind of like come alive. And I get to share other things like my favorite artists, my favorite music, my favorite sort of things in life, and also like the creative outlets like my art painting, my apparel designs, my sketches, all these kind of things I get to share along with this. So it's a good place to kind of combine all my passion, essentially. Talking about some other goals and aims. So after I started kind of doing this more sort of I guess like diligently, I have very quickly found my other passions in the area of what I want to do with this podcast project. And I think I really want to build a community, because I think for me personally, I'm sort of a very lonely person. I'm often like finding myself being a bit overwhelmed and a bit lonely and a bit isolated. And I think a lot of people are like that, especially in the modern world. So I feel like having a community online sometimes really helps with that. It's not like the cure-all, but it is a community that can often remind you that you have a team on another kind of plane, and that sometimes they can band together and do amazing things. And that's where like charity fundraising kind of comes into play. And I'm starting to get into that area. It's very, very young for this community, so it's very hard to kind of like get people to band together for this just yet. But I'm already starting it just to gain some experience, and I think that would be really cool to like do a lot more of these like impactful things. Another thing is I really want to like fundraise for some more money for the project, so I can kind of put them into supporting new artists. Some of them be my friends who are working very, very hard trying to push their music projects and trying to get their dreams to come alive, as a way to say it. But yeah, like whether that be just supporting them for like a bit of promotion, whether it be like trying to organize a way to kind of like help them perform live or something, or maybe just like going out with them to do busking and stuff. I just think like having a little bit of fun for that would be really, really cool, even if it's just passing on the donation to them to like help them with like creating new projects. That's one of the things I started thinking about and really want to like do. And the other thing, which is like probably the main core goal of like the podcast, is to remind people of how fun life can be and how different kind of experiences can be part of your life. You don't have to be very good at something. You don't have to be like know about something to experience it. The main thing to remember is never wait. There's never like the perfect time to like open that champagne, to wear that clothes, to go and do that activity, to go to that restaurant. You just go and enjoy it as soon as you think of it and as soon as you can. Go and hit that goal. Go and make that experience happen for yourself. Don't wait for anyone else. And, that's kind of like the whole reason to like showcase all these different experiences on the channel, to make you understand how cool it is to experience life to its fullest without waiting for anyone or waiting for anything to make it happen. You got to push yourself and you got to enjoy life. And if you want life to be enjoyable, you have to work for it. And there's so many different things that, can happen. So that's probably the 3 sort of like main core goals of like the podcast, which I can really tell you about. There'll probably be more, but that's the main 3 concepts that I think are very, very important, and which is why kind of I've set up a GoFundMe fundraiser for this, and donate if you can, if you enjoy this project, and if you have any sort of spare money to go into it, that would be absolutely amazing. I'm obviously trying to find my own fundings as well. But let's quickly go back to the APM thing. So the APM employment services is very, very crazy busy because Easter had just passed. So everyone's trying to get into an appointment. Anyway, so I went in, and for the longest time, I didn't want to talk about this podcast project because I know content creation doesn't really have a good rep sometimes. And it can come across sometimes as, to some people, like especially bigger corporations and such, like it's lazy or it's just like kind of not a real job, and I still have trouble getting out of that, like getting out of my head around that subject. But I decided, I was like, I have to take the leap because this is what's important to me, and this is where my passion is, and this is where I want my job to be in the future. And I believe it so deeply. Like, I never question whether like my concept's good or not. I love my concept, and I really, really think more people will come to love it. Even if people sometimes tell me like, no, you got to narrow down to like a subject, or it's going to be too confusing for people or something like that. Like, I don't care. This is what I believe in. I think Heartablaze podcast has a place in the world. But yeah, anyway, so I went in and I sat down and I told them that I had been looking for jobs and applying for jobs in the hospitality area, but I didn't hear back from anything. Probably did like over 10 job searches within like a fortnight while I was trying to do, 9 a.m. wake ups and posting stuff at like 12 a.m. for like every single day. So, my hours on my phone are like long. But most of it's work. I almost have no time to like doom scroll anymore, which is crazy because I love doing that. Yeah, so I mentioned that. I said, so the update is I want to talk to you that where I really want to switch my career to, and I really want to do content creation. I said, I run a podcast, and I gave them a very rough idea. Didn't really talk about any concept or anything. I just wanted to kind of tread lightly and see how she reacted. And the reaction wasn't good. She pretty much immediately said, well, I'm going to refer you to McDonald's and try to get you some kind of job at least. And I was like, not looking forward to that. So I'll probably try and find my own job because I think the payment there is probably going to be terrible, and the job condition is, as I hear, very, very bad. And I do not have enough stress tolerance to have that much more stress in my life. So that was pretty much rejected straight away. I felt immediately really terrible. When I left, I remember feeling really frustrated, a very strange mixture of feeling rather angry, but really, really like lost again, and feeling kind of like down because it just felt like all these hours I put in was pretty much summarized by someone immediately just like a no. It wasn't even like acknowledged. It wasn't even, the only thing that she asked was literally not like the concept or anything. It was just, so does it make money? And I said, no, not at this stage, but I'm working on fulfilling my second criteria out of the two, and I'm almost there for the first criteria. I was like, to get it monetized, which is very exciting, but it just got pretty much like shut down in my face. But yeah, so when I that was pretty much it. There wasn't that much extra things to talk about in that service, in that appointment. And when I walked out, I was just feeling all these emotions, and I was feeling just pretty like empty for a bit. And then after walking in the sun for a bit, I made myself walk around for a bit, and then went to get some food, went to get a little bit of snacks just to cheer myself up. And then by the time I got home, I was definitely like, when I was walking towards my apartment, I was definitely feeling a lot better. And I started thinking to myself, I was like, especially this message is for those who are struggling, especially if you're looking for like to achieve your dream or passion and people are knocking you down. Do not listen to other people. Follow your heart, and everything else will follow along with it if you don't know what's going on or what the next steps are. Follow your heart, follow what your passion is. Everything else will fall into place eventually by itself, as long as you keep to that. And don't let them tell you what works and what doesn't work. I mean, yes, constructive feedback is always good. Kind of take everything with a grain of salt, not like block everything out, but be very, very sure and confident about your ideas and give them a chance. And, a perfect example is, for example, I love Sam Tompkins. Sam Tompkins has been busking since like he was 16, and he's only just in recent years last year that really, really like took off in success, and before that he had like little moments of success, but he really like has become pretty mainstream within the last year. And that has been a long time. A lot of people take about 10 years before they kind of get that point. And he has a song that's like time will fly. And if you listen to the song, it very much talks about all the efforts he's put into trying to make an EP, trying to find like a label, all the things that he's like gone through, all the different kind of like dreams that people sell him. And how life is like so fleeting, and with all these kind of different experiences happening, talking about love, talking about friends passing, all these kind of experiences. It's a very, very good song that summarizes the idea of chasing dreams. And I think it's a very good reminder to not let go of your dream and to be fighting for it with every ounce of like strength that you have. And that's what I will be doing. I don't really know what's going to happen with the job search part of things, but I'll probably likely have to get back into workforce for a little while. But I have so many friends who are music artists who are trying to balance a full-time job while kind of doing a million other projects. So I think if they can do it, I can do it. And if anything, I will make it happen, because I want my project to succeed, and I want you guys to keep seeing videos from me. And the last thing that I felt that I think is really important to share was, after that kind of little down period of emotions that I was feeling, I suddenly got this excitement and almost like a, fuck that kind of like feeling. I was like, I'm not gonna like lose to this. I was like, I'm gonna push even harder. I'm gonna experience things even harder. I'm gonna go out and experience more things and really push everything, because that's what my project deserves. That's what I deserve. And that's what all the people that have taken a leap of faith and done interviews with me or worked collabs with me deserve. And all my friends would probably want to like see me succeed. They have so much faith in me and so much kindness and so much love put into me. I really want this community and this podcast to be a very, very love forward kind of place. Obviously, we will talk about sometimes certain like negative subjects and such, like mental health or like world politics and such. I do touch on certain things like that, but in the end, it's all about love, and it's all about building a community that connects people more than anything else. And that's pretty much all I wanted to share today. It's just a little bit of an update. It has been a little bit rough today, but I think I'm getting there. And I just really want to share that with you and remind you that, your project is worth it. Your passion is worth it. Your dream is worth it. Anything that you put your mind to, you will get there eventually, as long as you keep on believing it. Sometimes it will be difficult, because a lot of people will tell you that it's not going to work or it's not going to happen. And it will be coming at a time that is least easiest to believe that anything else is true except for those criticism. But you can do it. Remember Benito's Bad Bunny's speech? He's saying that he was here because he never stopped dreaming, or something along that line. I forget, it's been a while, a bad memory. But his speech was also very, very much a good reminder of this. So go have a look at that if you haven't seen the performance. But either way, thank you so much for listening to me rant a little bit and update you guys on the project. And the GoFundMe link is now added to the bunch of links down below. There's a variety of ways you can support me: buying my book, donating to GoFundMe, or even just buying me a coffee through Buy Me a Coffee app, or supporting my friends. Breezy has an MP3 launched music movement. Tiga has a personal growth personal growth community for personal growth if you want to like work on yourself. There's heaps of other things coming up, so keep a lookout for the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Hope you guys are having a great week. Stay bright and happy and enjoy life. See you, sunshine.